When I picked up my X100VI or X100VI, whatever you prefer to call it, I wasn't in the sort of hype bubble. I didn't know anything about the previous versions of the camera. I certainly didn't get the TikTok trend around the camera or its predecessor, but I knew that I wanted to try something new. I think I must have seen it on the Fujifilm Instagram page when they were sort of announcing it and releasing it, and just thought, that's a really good camera. Now, I'd been using Sony systems for maybe 4 or 5 years for both video work and photography. And I think it's safe to say that Sony is very utilitarian. You know what you're getting from Sony. They are very reliable, and obviously their autofocus is unreal. It is godly. I mean, I'm using a Sony now to record this video. That's how good I think they still are. However, I wanted to expand. I wanted to get better at photography, and I thought a good way of doing that was maybe constraining myself. I had one body, I had multiple lenses that I was always taking out with me, and I thought, wouldn't it be a fantastic idea to constrain myself? And I was seeing all the great photos that people were taking using Fujifilm cameras, and I thought, why don't I give that a go? But, and there is a big but, there are some things about this camera that I've had that when I first bought it, I wasn't too sure whether I'd made a mistake, whether I was going to keep it, whether I was a bad photographer, or I didn't know what. But of course, I'm more than 15,000 shots into having this camera now. I obviously have not got rid of it. So I thought we'll talk about it in this video, sort of break down my thoughts and opinion on this camera. Now I've had it for so long, and whether maybe you've just picked one up, you know, pre-orders, or you managed to scout one from somewhere, or you're still waiting for yours or wanting to know whether you should get one. Hopefully this video will be helpful for you guys. So it was really quite a funny one in the first couple of weeks of owning this. I mean, compared to my Sony, battery life was worse, autofocus was worse. I mean, the menu in this camera and all Fujifilms that I can see are hideous, complicated, hard to find. I mean, even all the wording inside the menu is not the same size. But I knew from looking at other creators, and maybe as a photographer you shouldn't be comparing yourself to other people, but looking at other creators, I was seeing the photos they were getting out of this camera, and I just knew that I could do the same. Why not? If they can do it, I can do it. So of course I've stuck with it, and even though it's been an interesting road, I have now got to the point where I'm very comfortable using this camera, and I wouldn't trade it in for a Sony or any other system. I guess we should talk about why I kept this camera. Why did I not give up when I found that I was not enjoying using it, really? I was a bit disheartened, and I wasn't really that happy with the photos that I was getting out of this camera. Why did I decide to keep it? Why didn't I just go to my comfort zone and buy another Sony with loads of other lenses and be absolutely golden? And the honest reason for that is how it made me feel when I was using this camera. Like I've just mentioned before, using a Sony feels like a tool. It feels, I don't know if it's because maybe I use them for work as well, but it feels like a work machine. And don't get me wrong, you can certainly use this for portrait work or whatever work it might be, but it feels like an extension of me. I really enjoy using it, holding it, interacting with it. And now I've got it set up menu-wise, I don't dive into the menus at all. I know a few other content creators have mentioned that once you set up this camera, it's got enough buttons on it that you don't really need to be going into the menu too much. The only menu I go into is Bluetooth on and off for when I'm transferring phones, and it already knows what menu I want to go to, and it's nice and easy. Apart from that, I've got it set up perfectly how I like to use it. And because it is so tactile and manual, it gives you a lovely sense of control over the photos that you're taking. And the sort of user experience, in my opinion, is far better than any other camera I've used. And I've been fortunate, I've picked up quite a few cameras and got to use quite a few cameras during my day job and personal life. So that's one of the reasons I still stick with this camera. I think also a huge part of why I've kept the X100VI is the 35mm equivalent lens. I think whilst it is extremely restricting just having a fixed lens camera, there is no getting away from the fact that being able to change lenses is so much better for versatility. There's something about stripping back photography to where you're stuck with what you've got that really makes you think and makes you move. Now, there's some photos that I used to take with my Sony that I would not realistically be able to take with my X100VI. I'm thinking sort of close-up animal shots, some types of sort of portrait shots as well, and sort of very nuanced things. Those types of photos you do need particular lenses for. You know, I think I've taken photos of like squirrels and things like that before with a 200 or a 300. I'd never be able to get that close with this camera unless the squirrel was, I don't know, a pet maybe. But realistically, it's not going to happen. However, like I've just said, there's something about stripping back the process that to me feels real, feels raw. It's hard to explain unless you've tried it, but it certainly makes you as a photographer move, because of course you have to be the focal length, you have to move your body. And there is a difference between moving your body and just zooming in and out as well. There is an art to that, there is a distance, there is a difference, and it's subjective as well. I think if I was doing photography purely for work and capturing the exact photo that I needed was a priority all the time, I would think maybe about going for like an X-T5 or something like that with an interchangeable lens. So I always had that option, because of course you can always force yourself to use a certain focal length. You don't need to buy a whole camera for that. I would maybe buy a camera with an interchangeable lens if you needed it for work. Because I use this purely for my own hobby and entertainment, I don't need to worry about that so much. I can just use it and get that enjoyment and just know that there are some shots that I'm not going to be able to get. I think the next thing for me with the X100VI is portability. It's not pocketable. Anyone who tells you this camera is pocketable, they've got giant jacket pockets, and even then it's going to be weighing down in your pocket. And obviously if you've got the adapter on like I have, it is not pocketable. Something like the Ricoh or any other sort of little point and shoot cameras like that would be a far better option if you're looking for something truly portable and pocketable. However, it fits in small bags, slings, you know, you can sling it around you and you don't feel like you're really carrying it. It can definitely be an accessory to whatever you're bringing or whatever you're doing, which means you can take it anywhere you want to go. Zoos, take it on a plane, in airports, boat trips, wherever you might want to take it, you realistically can. I mean, I hike with this camera everywhere, and I'm very glad that I take this with me and not something really big and bulky, because that's a lot of weight. And sometimes I go for a hike and I don't take any photos. So it's nice to know that I haven't hiked around with this 2 kilo camera and I haven't taken any photos with it. So portability is a huge thing. It is not pocketable. Do not get sucked into that. But the ability to take it wherever you want is a fantastic tool. And it of course means that you will use the camera more. You tend to take the camera with you to more different, interesting places, which means you become a more versatile photographer, and that means you become a better photographer, in my opinion. Like I said, I take it to restaurants or wherever and get some dinner shots or photos of the waiters or silhouettes or whatever it might be. And it's nice. And I think also because of the look of the camera, it doesn't scream, I'm a professional camera. You can get away with being like, oh, you know, I'm a tourist, I'm an amateur, whatever it might be, or just doing photography for fun, which, to be fair, even if you're a professional, you should be doing it for fun. So, and I guess the last reason why I've kept this camera is the image quality. Now, the image quality on my Sony was not bad, but the fact you have got a 40 megapixel sensor in this camera is really nice. I think the IBIS in this is actually really, really nice, and I have enjoyed always enabling that feature. However, I think I've come to realise the fact that I can now shoot JPEGs and use film recipes, that having those megapixels, they really don't mean a lot. It really does not mean a lot. If you're doing massive prints or massive work, professional work, that is maybe a different discussion. But if you're doing small prints, you're posting to social media, you're uploading them to a website, they don't need to be massive for you to enjoy them. So it's something that I'd advise people when you're buying a camera. Buy a camera that you will always use and that you will fall in love with. Don't buy one for the specs and the megapixels, because it really does not matter. And yeah, that is why I've kept it. So let's move on to whatever next section I've decided to talk about. Okay, and that next section is, how have I made the X100VI mine? What have I done to personalise it? Because of course I've had it for over a year now, and I think it is important to personalise your camera however you may do it, because it means, again, you'll probably like it more and want to use it more and get along with it better. And I think we're very lucky in the Fujifilm community that because it's such an aesthetically pleasing looking camera, even with this giant big lens adapter, people make a lot of accessories for it, because it is so well known as a camera. It does help our cause. So the first thing that I did with this camera, and I have now adopted and I absolutely love, the SD card just fell out on the floor, 1 minute, was buy a big fat micro SD card. Now, I would advise most people just to get an SD card, if I'm honest. I went for a micro SD card because I do a lot of filming with other gear, so having the versatility of wanting it full SD or micro means if I forget one or the other, I can be swapping them out and it isn't such a pain for me. But getting a big SD card, the biggest one you can afford and the biggest one this camera can also hold, which I'll put a little whatever on the screen, is huge, because it means for me I can pick up this camera and I don't have to worry about deleting my photos, transferring those photos, backing them up or storing them. I think this 512 gigabyte holds maybe 3,000 or 4,000 photos, and that's JPEG plus RAWs as well. So it would be more if it was just JPEGs, and that's also on the highest quality JPEGs and RAWs. So I've maxed it out, and even for me, that's a lot of photos. I typically won't take that many photos for quite a while, so it means I can leave this in the camera, which also means I don't lose it as often. I don't forget it because I'm not constantly taking it out and plugging it back in. Or I could use it for a whole weekend or a whole week. So that's been a big game changer for me and a big thing as to why I'm enjoying using this camera more. But I guess that applies to any camera, it's not just this system. The next big one is filters. Now you might see I've got this filter on the camera, this sort of bronzy golden one. These ones are from Polar Pro. I've just picked them up. This is there. So for this adapter, it's a 67mm, I think it's the 1/4 mist filter. And then when I'm just using this camera without this adapter, I'm using the Polar Pro everyday filter. Filters are huge in my opinion, and they really do help the style of photography that you're trying to portray, I suppose. Now in terms of mist, which I think it's fair to say that a lot of people using this camera and Fujifilm systems stick on a mist filter. Whilst it's something that you could add to raw photos in like Lightroom or wherever it might be, I think for me the fact I use JPEGs exclusively now means that I've obviously already got that sort of preset, that look already baked in on top of my recipes, which is really nice and very convenient. Also on the X100VI, it does add a certain look and a certain style to your camera, which is nice. Everyone's is slightly different, and it does also add weather sealing to this camera. It's by far no means waterproof, but I've taken it in some serious downpours and the camera is still going strong, so it must be doing obviously something to help and support that. So yeah, if you're going to pick up one of these cameras, I would invest in a filter, whether it's just like maybe a CPL to protect it and make sure that the camera stays safe, or it might be a polarizer. You've already got a built-in ND, but you might want more of an ND, or you might want to go for a mist filter, sort of bloom those highlights and make everything look very cinematic and pretty. Now the next accessory, you might see them in my hand, are camera straps. Camera straps are a necessary evil. I don't know why I hate camera straps. I really do. I think, especially the fact I hate these Peak Design ones, even though I think they're fantastically made. They come in some great colours, like you can see. And the quick release system is, well, very convenient. I hate the sort of jangliness that you get. And then for me also, because I want to, when I go for a hike typically, I don't use a camera strap because I have it in my bag. I want to be able to take off the strap it's a bit of a faff trying to do it if it isn't quick release. I don't really have fingernails anyway, and I think I would break them if I continue to try and take them off with these little loop tabs. But picking up a half decent camera strap, I mean, I've had this one for about 5 years now, and it still looks pretty much brand new. It hasn't broken on me in any way, but picking up a half decent camera strap is definitely needed. Doesn't matter what camera you have. But I would think the only thing I would say is if it's quite a heavy camera that you bought, I would invest in a thicker camera strap, like you can see this one here. I've got this one, I don't know what it's called. This one is the leash, which you can see obviously it's half the thickness, which for the X100VI is fine. However, when I use it with the adapter, like I've been showing in this video, this one is far better to use because it dissipates a bit more of the weight across your body and feels a bit more substantial. So, and I also do have the cuff as well. But like I said, I don't really like using them, and I do prefer nowadays just to take a sling with me and take it out the sling, use the camera. So it may be something I gravitate away from, but we will see. For the time being, we've still got the jingly jangly bits, and the fact that they're black does help the aesthetics, I suppose, a little bit. They're not the red ones that you typically see. The last thing I'll talk about on this camera is the leather grip. So you might be able to see, oh, there you go, leather grip on it there. I've had this on pretty much from day one. I've tried loads of different grips, but I do love this leather one the most. I have got another one coming, actually, but for now, this is my favourite grip. I think I like the placement of where the actual grip is. A lot of them come out from the side here, out, or they're just over, which for me means you're sort of holding it there. But I like that this one actually comes just there, and it just, for me in my hands, it just fits a lot nicer. And I do like the feel of the leather. Now this was quite an expensive case. It wasn't really expensive, but it was quite an expense. But you've got quick access to the flap there, the little sort of magnetic. I have taken it in rain, downpours. It's patinaed really nicely, and it protects the camera really nicely whilst not being completely sort of cocooned and wrapped up, which is quite nice. And it's not a full leather case, obviously, it's just a half one. But those are the types of things that I've done to personalise the camera, which have obviously boosted my enjoyment, boosted my experience of using the X100VI, and is some of the reasons why, of course, I'm still using it, still kept it, and still enjoying it. Now, I do want to say that I'm not bashing on the X100VI here, but I do want to be completely honest and open with you guys about using this camera. It has got some limitations, but there is also some workarounds for using this camera. I think like any camera, there are some quirks. Not everything is going to be perfect. If I had to pick one main frustration, pain point, it would probably be the autofocus. Using a Sony, it picks up on your eye, face, animals, cars, planes, really, really well. Locks on and it just does not let go. The X100VI, bless it, does try. It really does try, and 70–80% of the time it gets it. However, it's in those times that you want it to work, it does not work. So for me, what I tend to do, I probably won't be able to show it, but I've just got it in a little box on the back, in a little tiny box, and I just use the little sort of thumb dial, and I move it around, and I can just click it to recenter it. And for me, with the sort of level, those two things help me sort of get my photos, and I always get them within focus. Then it's down to user error really, because the camera knows where I'm trying to focus and what I'm trying to focus on. Of course, if I'm trying to focus really close, I'd need a macro lens, but that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, that would be maybe one pain point. It is a step back in autofocus, but it is of course something that they can continue to improve in software updates and probably new cameras and new sensors and things like that. Another pain point is the menus. When I first got this camera, it was more than just confusing to set up. It was a complete and utter nightmare. No videos that I watched really helped me. It's just been a slog and a pain. Now, if you've been using Fujifilm systems for years, that's absolutely fine. But if you've ever used any other camera system, it's so confusing to use. Even where you think things are, they're just not there. And even to bind controls to buttons is difficult to do. I really do wish you could I think it'd be perfect if you could plug the camera into a computer or something, or through their app, and then you could configure where the buttons went. A bit like my Garmin, I use my phone and I can configure all the data fields, all the settings on my phone, so I'm not trying to do it through all the buttons and the touchscreens on my watch, and it just syncs. I don't know if any other camera system does that, but they need to do it because it would solve all the headaches, all the problems. You wouldn't need, well, you're always going to need menus, but it would alleviate the need for the way the confusing menus are, because it's just, yeah, it's difficult. And I would hate to have to set up another camera from Fujifilm. It'd be less of an issue now because I know how I like things, but still it would just be like, oh my God, do I have to? And you can't even transfer over settings to settings, I believe. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe you can't. So that is a pain point, and there isn't really a workaround. You can obviously watch my videos on the settings that I use for the X100VI, and maybe that might help you. But yeah, it is a bit of a pain point. The last one is battery life. I mean, of course, the battery in this camera is not massive. Of course, it's a little battery, but it's a double-edged sword. Bigger battery means the camera's going to weigh more. Batteries can tend to be a little bit more expensive, and obviously spare batteries are a little bit bulkier. I've actually found, I've only just recently bought a spare battery, and that was because it was on a sale. Although I can't, there we go, we're in. And that was only because it was on a sale, and I just thought, why not? Throughout my last year, I've not carried any spare batteries with me. I've found that the battery life on this, maybe it's just in how I use it. I do use it in performance mode as well, which I don't know if that makes much of a difference, but I've not tried to preserve battery life. I take video on it as well. I mean, I can get a day out of it, a day shooting quite comfortably. I have got a little 1000 milliamp hour battery bank, which I bought as a sort of, I guess, like a different battery, which obviously I can plug into this. It's got a little USB cable, and my phone is USB-C. So I also have got a battery bank for that, which I can use for the Fujifilm. But yeah, I've been surprised at how good it's been. My Sony would chew through batteries, if I'm honest, and still does when I use it for video work. But the Fujifilm, for whatever reason, I'm really quite surprised. I think, obviously, on the bigger cameras, like the X100VI, the batteries are better and bigger, I should say. They're not better, they're just bigger. But I'd love to see what that sort of battery life is like, because it's really quite good on this. So if you've made it this far, well done. I have rambled on a little bit, but yeah, after about 14,000 shots with this camera and over 1 year later, I'm still using this camera. I've got no plans to get rid of it. I mean, I've just spent a lot of money on new filters, so I've got no plans to get rid of this camera, and I do absolutely love it. And I do recommend, if you're thinking about getting it or you've got your pre-order, you know, stick at it, wait till you get it in your hand, and just stick it out, personalize it, and you will love the camera, I promise. You've just got to give it time, as I have. But I would love to know in the comments, if you've made it this far, what's one camera that you loved, maybe you regret to get rid of it, or maybe you rebought it, or you keep coming back to it? What's the camera that if you had to walk out the door and know that you could get photos with that you liked, what camera would you pick up? I really want to know what cameras people are using, because you know, I love this camera, but I'd like to try other cameras too. So let me know what your favourite camera system or body is. I'd really love to know. Thanks everyone.